In solo leveling, in the United States at the International Guild Conference. As two men walk through, representative of Germany, Leonard Nierman of the Richter Guild questions why there's so many reporters. His agent tells him that the Korean hunter everyone's talking about is scheduled to arrive today. Speak of the devil, he says, asking if he should go and exchange greetings. Leonard says that there's no harm in getting acquainted with a strong hunter. While approaching, he suddenly stops in shock. The agent asks if he's going to speak with him, but Leonard questions if he can't see that. Realizing he doesn't summon his creatures from another dimension, but has them around him at all times instead. Leonard notes that he could go to war with the USA with those numbers. As he looks over, Jin-Ho asks if he sees someone he recognizes. Jin denies this, but says that there's some foreigner staring at him. Jin-Ho puts him at ease, making it known that his name is all over the news, so he'll obviously have fans. And maybe they want an autograph. Anyway, why are you here, Chief Woo Jin-Chul? Jin-Ho asks. Saying that he's here as Jin's bodyguard, Jin-Ho teases him, asking again. As Jin-Chul stands dismally, Jin thinks he's spotted his escorts. Adam greets Jin and his companions. But Jin questions Mr. White, as he was thought to be working the Asian branch of the Bureau. He confirms this, but says that he's now in charge of matters surrounding Jin Woo. Telling Jin that his companions will be escorted to a hotel, Jin tells them to go. Adam then asks Jin if he can go with them. This prompts Jin to ask if it involves his father. However, Mr. White says it's something that will most certainly be beneficial for him, assuring him that the U.S. Hunter Bureau thinks highly of him. Questioning if the subject matter is top secret, Adam confirms that some of the topics would fall under the top secret category. Questioning where they're going, Jin's told they're on their way to the Hunter Bureau's HQ. Adam explains that frankly, they are under a lot of pressure. Christopher Reed was one of the pillars of the United States' strength. Now he's dead, and they are left desperately trying to fill the void. Things are still quiet because his death is not yet public, but they will soon begin to do everything in their power to find a hunter who could replace him. And I am one of your candidates? Jin asks. Adam goes on to say that the value of a runestone is proportional to the power of the monster the stone was extracted from. The worst calamity in the history of mankind. The raid everyone wants to forget about. Dragon Kamish. They are looking for a new owner of the runestone extracted from the dragon. What do you think of our new offer? Mr. White asks. Alarmed, Jin asks if he can replay the pictures, clarifying that he wants to see the photo before the runestone, the photo of Kamish's body. He asks if the U.S. has been storing the corpse of Kamish, and Adam confirms. Jin then asks where it is, and says to take him there first. He's been willing to give up his time for the Hunter Bureau, so surely he has the right to ask. However, Adam says that the extent of his knowledge is only what the ups allowed him. Even he does not know where the corpse of Kamish is stored. However, he says that if it was Jin's request, he believes they'd be happy to oblige. Asking if Jin can wait while he takes a report, Jin says that they'll both have to wait, so they might as well go together. And David Brennan questions if Jin Woo is here right now, and asks if he's said anything about the runestone. Adam responds that he hasn't said anything about the runestone all day. This surprises the David, leaving him wondering why he just wants to look at the corpse. Saying that he needs to discuss with the deputy director, he asks Adam to wait outside. Asking if he has any idea why Jin wants to look at Kamish's body, the deputy director says that he couldn't say, but one thing is for sure, he is not a tourist. He explains that the value of a skill is unimaginable. Top hunters are more than happy to spend a large sum of money to purchase rune stones. A skill is a hunter's power, and power is equal to a hunter's survival. Yet, if he would rather see the corpse, it may mean he could attain something more than a skill. Questioning if his ability was limited to monsters, he killed himself. A realization hits the deputy as he wonders if he could create summons out of corpses of monsters that died a long time ago to someone else's hands. He is planning to make Kamish one of his summons. In disbelief, the director says that if that's true, it cannot happen. An individual must not be able to wield that much power. But if they deny his request, it may be difficult to maintain an amicable relationship with him. All right, he says, stomping his foot. I'll escort him myself. This may be a good opportunity to have a look at Jin's ability himself. David says he'd wish to speak to Jin in a more relaxed context, but this is probably what Jin would prefer. Not listening, Jin thinks about how they built the Bureau's HQ on the very spot Kamish was defeated. Continuing forth, Jin notices there's magical energy in the air. If there are residues of its energy after 8 years have passed, Jin wonders how powerful it'll be once turned into a soldier. The bay doors open, revealing the massive creature. David informs Jin that it managed to kill hundreds hundreds of elite hunters and was only defeated by the 5 remaining National Authority hunter. Its body has been perfectly preserved since death. All of the electricity used in this building is provided by Kamish's magic crystal. Asking if he's now satisfied, Jin tells David to stand back. Questioning if he's sure about this, David tells the deputy that he's already okayed it. Jin steps forth as David says, "Let's all watch what's about to unfold." Raising his arm, Jin says, "Arise!" However, only shock waves of shadow energy erupt from the corpse as the shadow extraction failed. Closing his eyes and taking a deep breath, Jin tries once more. "Arise," he says. A malevolent shadow forms before Kamish's shadow bursts from the corpse, roaring. As Kamish rises from his shadow roaring, all the lights shatter and gas tubes burst. Looking at Jin, the dragon questions if he was the one who summoned him. King of the dead, Shadow Monarch. The Americans question what's before their eyes. But realizing there's humans nearby, Kamish says they must die, and he will kill them all, cracking the glass that stands before he and the humans. David is shocked as the glass was reinforced by a top-ranking hunter's magic. Suddenly, Kamish bursts through the glass and begins charging his breath. Maintenance yells for the director to leave. However, he knows it's Kamish's breath, and they won't be safe by simply running away. But before Kamish can light the place up, Jin orders the dragon to stop, telling him that the magic crystal that was embedded in his head was removed long ago, so he doesn't need to obey the ruler's orders. Realizing that Jin Woo is speaking monster tongue, the Americans are in utter disbelief. Realizing what it feels like to submit to the Shadow Monarch, he squints his eyes and edges closer, presenting himself as the lowly servant who once served the Dragon Emperor and pays his respect to the new monarch. Questioning if he served the Dragon Emperor, Kamish confirms, saying he served the king of Berserk Dragons, the monarch of destruction. Feeling the incredible rage, Jin is surprised that a shadow soldier could possess such a powerful ego. It's on a completely different level to all of the monsters he's seen so far. He can tell it possessed incredible power. Absolutely dumbfounded by the dragon wagging its tail, the Americans watch in awe. The king of the dead Shadow Monarch and the king of giants monarch of the beginning. It must be one of the 9 monarchs mentioned by the system. Regrettably, Kamish bids Jin farewell, as it seems their meeting came far too late. Realizing that not even the power of the system can combat the passage of time, Jin screams for the system. However, fading away, Kamish expresses his envy of His Majesty's soldiers that can serve him for all eternity. He then warns Jin that there were 4 human beings that borrowed the power of the rulers, adding that it's been his honor to be in the presence of the new king. The dragon fades away as the system notifies Jin of a failed shadow extraction. It also tells him that the target's shadow has returned to the emptiness of the void. Too much time has elapsed since the target's death. Further attempts of shadow extraction will be ineffectual. Asking Mr. White to relay his apologies to the director, Jin says he'll cover the cost as much as he can. Walking out, the Americans shiver as Jin smashes the bay door while gritting his teeth in angry disappointment. After failing to arise the dragon Kamish, Jin gets back to the hotel, where Woo Jin-chul questions why he couldn't get in contact with him. Jin tells him that he was somewhere with no reception for a little while. Asking if he met with Jin-Ho then, Jin is confused, as Jin-chul says he left after Jin contacted him and told him he was waiting for him at the Hunter Bureau. However, Jin questions what he's talking about as he just returned from there. Adam says that Jin-Ho was not in the visitor's log, and Jin-chul says that can't be right, as a hunter from the Scavenger Guild came to fetch him about 2 hours ago, explaining that even though the Scavenger Guild has a close relationship with the Hunter's Bureau, they don't take care of their matters. He says that asking them about it directly should be the best course of action. As Jin asks himself why he's getting a bad feeling about this, Laura reiterates that Adam is saying they escorted the vice leader of the Ajin Guild. Realizing, Laura asks if Jin knows about this yet, to which Adam says he hasn't heard the news yet. Jin-Ho's companions asked them a while ago while Jin was at the Hunter Bureau. Laura tells him that they'll get to the bottom of this as soon as possible. Adam flips around, saying that the Scavenger Guild said they'll investigate, so they should get back to us soon. But as he turns around, he realizes Jin is nowhere to be found. jumping from rooftops. Jin thinks it's his fault. After he used Shadow Exchange to save Jin-Ho's father back then, he never assigned a shadow soldier to Jin-Ho, if something like that were to happen again. "Arise," Jin says. Sliding across a building, he tells his summons to find him. As Jin's shadows scatter, Thomas and his gang finish beating up a group of suits. Taking off his glasses, he says, "He's done it now, Hwang DongSu." He orders his men to find Hwang DongSu before Jin Woo does, whatever it takes. Standing before a beaten Jin-Ho, Hwang lets out a devilish grin as Jin Woo stands atop a building, looming down on the city below, listening to people's chatter through his soldiers. Could he have left the city? But Jin-Ho's a combat-type D-rank hunter. Normal people wouldn't be able to take him, even in significant numbers. If a car, supposedly headed for the Hunter Bureau's HQ, suddenly tried to leave the city, Jin-Ho would surely notice something is wrong and resist. The only clue that the culprits left is that they're with the Scavengers Guild. The Scavenger Guild, huh? Hwang Dong-seok's younger brother, Hwang DongSu. He must have been waiting for them to enter America for quite a while, so he could find out the truth about his brother's death. Jin-Ho and Jin were the sole survivors of the dungeon back then. Hwang DongSu must be certain that they killed his brother back then. Who knew that Woo Jin-Cho's warning to him back then would really come true? Jin doesn't regret what he did back then, but this never would have happened if Jin just left a guard with him back then. If anything were to happen to Jin-Ho. Meanwhile, asking for the non-existent news, Thomas Andre questions if Hwang isn't afraid of death. No, he's an S-rank hunter. He should be aware of the difference in strength between himself and Sung Jin Woo. So doing something so stupid, despite knowing that, means that Thomas will step up on his behalf. Wondering if he's been too kind to his hunters, Thomas asks Laura how the situation is. She reports that with the Hunter Bureau's cooperation, they've analyzed Mr. Hwang's movement patterns over the past month. There were a total of 3 instances where he strayed from his usual path of activity. He orders her to send all of their guys there and he'll head there too. But wait, he says, and asks her how she managed to convince the Hunter Bureau. She told them that if they don't find Hwang DongSu, Thomas and Jin Woo may collide. Adam reports that all members of the Scavengers Guild are on the move. All scheduled raids have been canceled and all hunters are moving now. The deputy director realizes that if all members of the Scavenger Guild are on the move, that means Thomas Andre is behind this. So this is big. Just what exactly is going on? He questions. Meanwhile, inside an abandoned factory, a guild member asks if he's sure this is okay. Announcing that he's not planning on doing anything to him, Hwang says there's just one thing he wants to know. Thomas warned him not to touch Sung Jin Woo, but he never planned on messing with Jin Woo in the first place, because there was one more person who could provide him with answers. He told Jin-Ho that if he spoke honestly on what exactly happened to his brother in that dungeon, then he'd let him go without a scratch. There was just one thing that he wanted to hear, that Sung Jin Woo killed his brother. As soon as Hwang hears that, he's done with you, Jin-Ho. Telling Jin-Ho to wake up, Hwang punches the beaten man in the chest, causing him to cough blood. Commenting on Jin-Ho's durability, Glasses guesses that he really is a tanker and says any normal human would have died by now. Unsure why the naive-looking bastard is being so stubborn, Hwang says it's commendable but won't lead to forgiveness. Slamming his head against the steel beam and getting close enough to kiss, he tells Jin-Ho that he won't kill him, explaining that the guy behind him is a pretty good healer and he's going to save the battered hunter when he's on the brink of death, which means that until he tells them what they want, he'll be endlessly tortured. On top of that, they're in a factory that's been closed down for over 5 years, so nobody is going to save him no matter how much he screams. Questioning if that makes him want to talk a little, Jin-Ho whispers to him, off, getting closer so he can hear. Jin-Ho opens his mouth and sticks up his finger, telling him to off. Angrily, Hwang smashes his head again. Blackie tells him to be careful since he doesn't want to deal with murder for money, to which the S-rank says he'll be mindful of. Asking if they should get started, one of the others questions, haven't you found out enough? Responding, what are you talking about? We're only just started, Hwang DongSu says with a devilish grin. Suddenly, he looks over curiously as an orc stands at the entrance. Taking off his jacket, he questions if there's a dungeon break nearby or something. Quivering in his shadowy boots, the hunters find it interesting that the shadow soldier is shaking as if it's scared of him. Hwang thrusts at the shadow soldier when suddenly exchange. Meanwhile, at his apartment, his mother wonders what he's doing right now. From their shadow, Beru talks to the mother of their king, saying if there were anything their lord cannot withstand, nobody in the world would be safe from it. They all spot Jin on the news when suddenly Beru is struck with a feeling. He recognizes its familiarity, saying the king is enraged. While the Knights Guild prepares for a raid, Yuntai turns, gasping, turning to the boss and telling him the shadows under his feet just shivered. DongSu dismisses it, asking him how many times he's told him not to drink before a raid. Pleading with the boss that he hasn't had a single drop today, Yuntai says the shadows really trembled beneath him. Driving on the highway, Thomas yells for the driver to stop the car after realizing that it's already began. Andre kicks the door off, jumping out. He tells the driver that he's going to go on ahead and orders the driver to follow as fast as he can. Thomas launches across the road as the agents guess they're going to be flooded with damage compensation, and he should have just taken the car. Punching him in the gut, the members are shocked, and Jin-Ho smiles as Hwang coughs blood before flying backwards. The Shadow Monarch stands furiously. Administering the healing potion, the system notifies Jin that if health is below 10%, it will be useless. Questioning if either of them is a healer, Jin demands they heal his vice master. However, Glasses says that they don't speak Korean. Recovered, DongSu says that Jin wants them to heal the kid, asking if this is the first time he and Jin Woo have met. Jin ignores him while giving Glasses his final warning. Nervously, Glasses says that they need the boss's approval. But before he can even finish his sentence, Jin Woo grabs his head and throws him against the steel beam. Shaking, Blackie says to DongSu that they weren't warned about this guy's connection to Jin Woo. Irritated, Jin asks if he can heal or not, but before he can finish his words, he gets pancaked by Jin's ruler's authority. Stepping in, he asks Jin if he killed his brother, Hwang Dong-Seok. Weakly, Jin-Ho warns his friend that Hwang Dong-Su is Hwang Dong-Suk's brother and to be careful, to which Jin tells him not to speak. Demanding an answer, Dong-Su asks if he killed his brother and teammates. As the two have a standoff, Jin tells him that he can ask his brother when he sees him again. Lunging at him, Jin swiftly dodges, retaliating with a punch to the gut. Coughing blood, Hwang flies through the air, crashing into a pipe. Before recovering, he looks over to see Jin standing over his shoulder. Screaming, he is grabbed by the head and smashed into the pipe. Picking up his head and repeatedly smashing it, suddenly, Thomas Andre crashes in, telling him that's enough. Thomas asks DongSu if he's still alive, to which he affirms. Since Jin seemingly understands him, Thomas says that if he lets Hwang go, they can forget any of this happened. Questioning what will happen if he doesn't, Thomas says he'll have to stop him by force. Tossing DongSu aside, he grins, knowing that Thomas has no choice but to step in. Questioning if he knows who he is, Jin responds that it doesn't matter who he is. Thomas is surprised Jin is doing this knowing who he is. Growing up in a poor immigrant family, he was always surrounded by opposition. Having nothing to his name, the skies bestowed him with a gift, an extraordinary gift that made him indomitable, overwhelming strength. Through the countless number of battles he fought, he proved the worth of his talent. He observed the effects his power had against the people who opposed him. Strength, authority, wealth, force. He lived his life like a king with all those types of power. And when a different type of power appeared in the world, he took the opportunity to become a true king. He crushed those who blocked his path. Those who looked down on him were made to kneel. Violence was the key. Now, as Jin Woo stands before him, Thomas prepares to show that power. Meanwhile, the Scavenger Guild arrives at the scene, preparing the troops. Suddenly, a tremendous force hurls past them, sending the cars flying. While the dust settles, Andre waves them off as they question if he's all right. Thomas glares on as an agent tells the guild members to get moving. Meanwhile, Jin orders Igris to take Jin-Ho to the nearest hospital and to make sure that he gets treated, no matter what. As Kaizel takes off, Thomas stands along his entire Scavengers Guild as Jin stands before nearly his whole shadow army. Excited, Thomas says that now this is starting to look like it'll be worth his time. Not giving a shit about DongSu, he thinks that there's only one way to restore his pride: killing that arrogant son of a... Thomas Andre tells Jin that if he admits to his mistake and backs off, he'll spare his life. Jin replies by throwing the unholy finger at him, calling him a son of a Andre charges himself while informing Jin that he'll regret throwing away his last chance. Aura surrounds the Hunter army as Jin's shadow army advances. Charging forward, the tankers create a shield wall, resulting in a massive light shield forming, blocking the shadow army's onslaught. Bursting through the shadow army, Thomas smashes and slashes through the summons. Standing before Tusk, he bursts off the ground, tearing straight through his head. Commenting on how easy it is, Thomas crashes back down. Noticing Jin Woo, he dashes forward. However, sliding in his path, Thomas yells for Tank to get out of his way as he sends the shadow flying. Nowhere to be seen, Jin emerges at his back, slashing at his ribs. However, they can't pierce Thomas's skin. Surprised, Jin is hit with a back fist that sends him flying. Telling Jin not to underestimate national rank hunters, he uses his telekinesis to pull Jin in, telling him to despair at the difference in their power. But Jin activates his own telekinesis, freezing Thomas in place. Questioning what the hell is going on, as it seems like Jin is trying to keep him in place. Realizing that he is going on the offensive, even though Thomas is pulling him in, Jin punches him in the face, sending the national hunter rocketing. Questioning if Jin made him bleed, Thomas gets his footing. But Jin dashes forth, mocking his previous statement. Hitting Thomas with a barrage from all angles, he says he'll start taking this seriously, activating Reinforce. Meanwhile, as the Hunter Bureau makes their way to the scene, the driver tells Adam that he needs to know what's going on. Dismissing it, the driver asks what happened, explaining that he may not be able to feel it as he's a civilian, but if they go any further, their lives will be on the line. In that moment, Jin Woo had thought to himself that there were 4 humans who borrowed the ruler's powers, and perhaps they could be among the 5 people who survived the Kamish raid. In other words, the 4 national rank hunters, including Thomas Andre. Darting towards him, Andre raises his arms, slamming them into the ground, shattering the earth beneath them. Jin manages to evade, however. Thomas uses capture. Hunters shout for everyone to fall back as Thomas creates a huge orb that devours the shadow soldiers. Comparing it to a black hole, Jin knows he would have been sucked if it wasn't for his ruler's authority. Blowing up the warehouse, Jin jumps to the top of a steel beam. Looking down on him, Thomas tells Jin that he won't get away this time. The Scavenger Guild members rush to carry the wounded caught in the crossfire. A man glances over as Andre blasts off the ground, flying toward Jin Woo. Closing in, the Shadow Monarch counters, stepping on his head and launching off. However, using capture, Thomas pulls him back, but activating ruler's authority, Jin reels his fist back. Questioning if Jin is thinking of taking him head-on, Thomas accepts the challenge. Activating reinforcement, their fists collide, creating a massive impact, sending them both crashing through the warehouse. Jin Woo lands as Thomas bursts out of the rubble. Dashing forth, Thomas thrusts his fists toward him, but Jin dodges, and as Andre's attack shatters the ground behind him, Jin grabs his horns and knees him the face. As he cracks Thomas's skull, Hunter Bureau agents arrive. Disheartened by the intense battle, an agent warns Mr. White that the situation is going to be unsafe, advising him to steal his heart. As the Titans crash through the warehouse, Adam questions what he's seeing as the agent confirms that it was Thomas Andre. Asking what they should do now, Adam tells him they have to stop the two, prompting the agent to question how they're going to do that, adding that Thomas is getting pulverized by the Shadow Monarch, wondering how a magic-type hunter possesses this much strength and speed. Thomas questions if he's going to lose. Calling it impossible, he gets ready to claw Jin Woo, but he blocks it, punching the hunter. Knowing that his overwhelming strength is his sole purpose, Thomas screams his name, telling Jin to not dare think he will beat him with just this. But elbowing him in the head, Jin repeats that it doesn't matter who he is. Watching in awe, Adam pleads for Jin to stop as he hits Andre with a flurry of blows, destroying his armor and spirit. Admitting defeat, Jin holds his fist, once more calling his loss. Adam is in absolute astonishment seeing that Jin beat Thomas to such a state. Questioning how many other hunters in the world could do this to Thomas, he asks if there even is another, noting that the public will go wild if this is ever known. Ordering the hunter to heal Thomas, he says that he can't do it alone, as every bone in his body is broken and he's bleeding badly. He could only withstand this because he's a national authority hunter. Any other hunter would have died died more than 10 times from the injuries. Realizing that no one has died, Adam says that it isn't too bad, all things considered. Just then, an agent reports that hunter Hwang DongSu isn't breathing, his heart isn't beating, and Sung Jin-Woo has disappeared. Jin sits atop a building saying that he used shadow exchange with Baru. Inquiring on his last visit to Korea, Jin tells a shadow that he's looking at Seoul. Baru is probably healing Jin-Ho to the best of his abilities in America right now. Calling on his king, Jin responds, prompting the general rank shadow to plead that Jin bestow him with a name. Acknowledging that he died because of his greed, Jin decides to name him Greed. Asking what he thinks, Hwang DongSu thanks his king before being ordered to put his head back on the floor. The next day, at the International Guild Conference, Jin walks in surrounded by reporters as the deputy informs him that they've already heard about his fight. Telling Jin that he won't be able to avoid attention today, the deputy thinks on how this man did that to the Scavenger Guild and says that they've got testimonies from DongSu's accomplices and the Bureau will give an official debriefing soon. Not wanting to think about that incident anymore, Jin knows he only came to America for one reason, and once he's found what he wants to know, he's done here. Telling Jin that whatever's said will be translated, he's handed earbuds. Walking into the conference room, all eyes turn to Jin as he stands dripping. As Jin-Woo walks through the conference room, men gossip about how he almost killed Thomas Andre. Taking a seat, a man in a white cloak enters the room, introducing himself as Dr. Belzer. He addresses the attendees, acknowledging that while they are aware of the spike in the number of gates and powerful beasts, they may not know about the unusual activities in the skies. Dr. Belzer explains that the mana absorbed into the atmosphere is growing increasingly dense, referring to it as the Magosphere. He asks if they are aware that this Magosphere is currently gathering above the skies of several countries. He says that this phenomenon has appeared in a total of 9 places, and out of those places, it is most concentrated in Seoul, South Korea. Surprised, everyone shifts their gaze towards Jin-Woo. However, Dr. Belzer points out that there is no need to stare at Jin-Woo because if he is the one herding around the Magosphere, then he's already surpassed the realm of hunters. Jin reflects on the possibility that the 9 places where the Magosphere is concentrated could be related to the 9 monarchs. Dr. Belzer continues, stating that although there is no way to deal with this phenomenon, it is important to address the situation, adding that the world may once again be faced with great change. David Brennan takes over, announcing that he has something urgent to discuss, and states that around 2 weeks ago, Hunter Christopher Reed was assassinated by a group of unidentified assailants. Panic ensues as everyone looks at Jin, assuming he's involved, but he remains stoic. Adding that the official obituary will be released tomorrow, David asks that everyone listen carefully, as there is a man they already suspect to be the perpetrator. Throwing up photos of Suspect S, 2 men dismiss Jin as the culprit, but note that the man looks awfully similar to someone else sitting here. Feeling Jin's gaze, they avoid turning around, dismissing it as all Asians look the same anyways. Jin grits his teeth in anger while recalling what Kamish said about the 4 humans who borrowed the ruler's strength. Unsure why the rulers sent a monster in the form of his father, he wonders if it had to do with what Kamish said. David reports that the creature found in a U.S. gate could speak human language. They requested S-rank hunter Hwang DongSu's aid, but he took down the hunter in the middle of the interrogation and brought the Hunter Bureau's HQ down in flames. Stating that the culprit was powerful enough to defeat Hwang DongSu, he concludes that strong, similar humanoid monsters who escaped from the dungeon may have targeted Christopher Reed together. As the projector covers more panels of the incident, Jin realizes that his father's talking to him, warning him to not step foot in Korea, not for his son, but for him, or he won't be able to rest even after death. Jin summons Greed, and he confirms it's as he suspected. The director announces plans to request aid from all global guilds to apprehend Suspect S, and urges them to contact him immediately upon discovery. An attendee asks if there's proof that Suspect S is not human, to which David responds that his mana emission completely matches that of a monster. Another attendee asks if the described hunter is real, and David confirms. When asked why he hasn't revealed the hunter's identity, he replies that the hunter has a connection to someone present, so they withheld that information. Asking for any further questions, a hand hand raises, suggesting that it would be more helpful to reveal his identity in pursuit of his arrest. All eyes turn to China's 7-star hunter Liu Jigang as he asks about the monster's relation to Sung Jin-woo. Guessing he has no choice since Liu wants to know, David reveals that during questioning, the suspect claimed to be Sung Jin-woo's father. Thus, they will proceed with the investigation, assuming it's true. Liu then asks Jin what he would do if Suspect S turns out to be his father and hunters pursue him. Jin replies that if the suspect is a beast, he'll hunt him down himself. But if it's his father, he'll simply hunt down the hunters and protect his family, even if he makes an enemy of all the hunters around the world. As the conference ends, Adam walks out with Jin and asks if he was serious, to which he affirms. Nervously smiling, Adam says that there are probably only 2 hunters in the world who would dare say something like that. Asking who the other is, Adam replies, he's in the hospital right now. Adam announces there will be a feast and invites Jin to the banquet if he's not too busy, however. As they speak, Liu Jigang approaches from the other side of the room. Speaking in Chinese, Jin asks what he's saying, to which the agent replies that Liu caught a giant monster that Jin let slip away on the coast of China. Surprised by his ability to speak Chinese, Adam remarks that he is in charge of the Asian branch after all. Continuing to translate, Liu says that he was surprised to find the giant monster stronger than expected, and the battle over water made it even more difficult. Ever since, he's been curious to meet the hunter that could take down such strong monsters so easily. Reaching out for a handshake, Liu adds that he's happy Jin put Thomas in his place and that Adnray was undoubtedly wrong. As they shake hands, Liu says one more thing which throws Adam off. Walking away mischievously, Adam translates that he's hoping for that reason Suspect S isn't a member of Jin's family. As Liu Jigang leaves the room, Adam translates that Liu had no intention of fighting Jin and bore no ill will. Just then, David Brennan approached, asking if he could have a moment with Jin. Agreeing, Jin takes a seat across from the upgrader, Norma Selner. Wondering what she wants, Jin admits that he hadn't expected to meet her again. Norma explained that she had been having recurring dreams in which top hunters were hunted down by someone. And in recent days, those dreams have started to come true. Asking if she means Christopher too, David explains that they warned him, but he wouldn't listen. Norma continues, stating that powerful hunters would continue to die, and those hunting the hunters would not stop. Jin questions whether she had come to warn him of his fate as well. However, she denies this, instead revealing that she had come to ask Jin to protect the hunters, further explaining that she had been trying to remember the faces of those who had been hunted in her dreams, but none of them were clear. So she decided to try confirming their identities with her ability within the dreams. Recalling the time Norma had looked into his eyes, she confirms, saying that once she came into contact with it, she was forced to wake up from her sleep. Still vividly remembering the voice she heard from it when they locked eyes, Jin asks what it said, and Norma, recalling the images of it, responds that the voice had told her to go back and prepare for war. Realizing that it's the battle between rulers of sovereigns that the King of Giants spoke of, he wonders which side the ones killing the hunters are on. Still confused, Jin inquires about what this has to do with him being asked to protect the hunters. Norma clarifies that she had seen a similar power within him. Speculating that she saw the power of the Shadow Monarch that day, Jin realizes that if she saw the same power in her dreams, it must be the sovereigns. David admits that these beings are beyond hunters and that they need Jin's immense power to help. He said they hadn't been sure Jin could be the one to protect the hunters until they saw him fight Thomas Andre. David adds that they don't expect him to help without compensation and offer anything he wants, even the greatest treasure left behind by Dragon Kamish, telling Jin that there are hunters in this world who have received powerful blessings and have supported the world with their powers. David says that if they disappear, this world won't last. However, Jin apologizes. David asks if it's because he still has personal grudges against Thomas Andre, but Jin denies this, saying that he still doesn't know who he needs to be fighting against. Jin stands up, his mind made, and as he walks out, Adam reflects on what he had said. But just before leaving, Jin folds, calling Agent White and requesting the list of hunters they wanted him to protect. On the last day of the International Guild Conference, Jin asks how Jin-Ho is feeling, to which he responds good as new, as Jin-Ho proudly cries knowing knowing that Jin fought Thomas Andre the Goliath, a group of men talk about how he's on another level as he's right in front of them, yet they can't feel his presence at all. While they realize that Jin-Ho must be the hunter, Jin fought Thomas Andre to save. A man greets Jin Woo, introducing himself as the CEO of a global corporation specializing in dealing with monster remains, and offers to purchase all of the giant monsters he's hunted. Noting the good timing, Jin says that he's mainly in charge of the raids, and his vice chairman is in charge of all the business-related matters. Watching Jin-Ho, Jin smiles inwardly, seeing that Jin-Ho is really a proper vice chairman now. At this moment, Adam hands Jin a list, explaining that they've ranked the hunters by points they assign them based on their contributions and activity. The 10 hunters listed at the top are leading in points. He tells Jin that if he accepts their proposition, then he'd likely be asked to protect those people. Curious, Jin asked where he himself would rank. Adam replied, saying that taking in account the giant monsters he took down, he would rank somewhere around 3rd or 4th place. First is Thomas Andre, second is Liu Jigeng, third is Christopher Reed, and the 4th was Siddharth Bakchan. Calling it a drag, Jin decides to put a shadow soldier on each of them, instead of memorizing all their names. He'll make contact with the rulers through these hunters. This way, he'll be able to tell who's friend and who's foe, and who he'll need to fight. Footsteps approach, and suddenly everyone gets serious. Thomas Andre calls Jin Woo's name and asks to ask one thing, explaining that because the damage his arm took from magic power, the healer's healing magic is not working, and the doctor said the same thing, that even though it's slowly recovering, it's still far from complete recovery. Knowing that Jin could have single-handedly wiped out his entire guild after dealing with him, and acknowledging that amidst the chaos, not a single guild member has died, excluding Hwang DongSu, the cause of the commotion. Thomas asks Jin why he let them live. Jin answered calmly, saying that Thomas hadn't committed a sin deserving death, turning his head and walking away. He mentions that he plans to have a great funeral for Mr. Hwang. Even though he committed a sin deserving of death, Thomas asks Jin to let him have a funeral, raising his arm and adding that when it's healed, he would like to have a meal with Jin, and if he gives his manager his contact info, he'll contact Jin later. The manager explains that Thomas just showed his gratitude towards him for not harming his guild members, and no matter how he looks, he's actually quite a shy person. Insisting Jin gives her his contact info, Laura says that Andre wants to give him a gift of gratitude. However, Jin declines, explaining that her master is very competitive and becomes uneasy when he feels he owes someone a favor. Laura says anything would do. Thinking a dagger would be useful, Laura appreciates his understanding and departs. As she leaves, Adam asks if they should meet and greet with the hunters on the list. However, Jin dismisses the idea and asks if there's a person missing, as he doesn't see rank 6 hunter. Surprised, Adam admits that they lost contact with him a couple of days before the conference. The secret agency and the Brazilian government both have yet to find his whereabouts. Questioning if he was already done in, Jin notes that leaves 7 people. Back in South Korea, Chairman Go calls it strange, as his heart refuses to stop shaking these days. His heart's been this way for a couple years now, but he could feel it getting worse. Questioning if this is his limit, he knows the doctor said he could lose his life within half a year if he keeps up the work. Since then, 2 years have passed, and he's where he's at currently. His office phone rings, to which he answers to a voice, making sure nothing happened today. Calling her a worrywart, he says he was just about to go back when he suddenly senses something. Looking out the window and questioning what this is, he wonders how this could have happened before looking over to see the Frost Monarch and this guild conference arc end.